All right, it is 10:01 and nobody is here, so I'm going to go ahead and have this meeting. Hopefully somebody watches it. My screen is already shared. You should see it. Let me pull up my notes to help me keep on track here. As usual, I'll start off reminding you that even though these meetings are mandatory, you need to either attend them or watch the video. But despite that, you can still get extra credit for doing so. As usual, I'm going to give you a bunch of words or phrases throughout this video. And then at the end, you're going to email me with the list of words. And of course, the last thing I'm going to ask you is to ask me a question about the material presented in this video. And as always, I'll remind you, you can ask me anything about anything, but for the sake of grading, for the sake of getting your extra credit points, you need to ask at least one question about the material presented in this video. Likewise, that's one way to get an extra credit. Another way, again, as I remind you, as I have before, you can also summarize this discussion, summarize this meeting in the module 7 discussion, so you can get those points directly applied to that discussion if you to that discussion if you want. And as usual, like I said, it's a summary, so you're not going to want to write down every single thing I say. We don't need a transcript. I just need you to summarize. Bullet points are nice, keep it short and sweet. That being said, the first word for attendance is Java, like a different word for coffee, Java. Java is the first word for attendance. So let's get started. First of all, I'll remind you, as usual, I'm still grading. I did take the weekend off. I usually do, but sometimes I work a little bit over the weekend. I did not work at all this weekend. Didn't even look at my emails, so I have a lot of catching up to do. And I will post in the announcements. I will let you know when I am done grading. If you can, hold off on asking. Appreciate it, but if not, that's okay too. I'm here for you. Here's something new. This is the first time I mentioned this. This Sunday will be the last day that you can turn in late work or corrections or extra credit. And I'll remind you again, according to the syllabus, late work and corrections is not accepted, right? So this is all unofficial anyway. And the reason I bring that up is technically, right, if you turn in something late today, for example, there is still a possibility I might not get around to grading it, right? Because I prioritize new work. So by me saying that you can't turn anything in late after this Sunday, that doesn't guarantee that if you have turned in something late now that I will grade it. Like I will try. That is my plan. But again, my priority is new work. So anyway, there you go. This Sunday will be the last, right? So the last week of class, module 8 will just be module 8. Moving forward, I think I've mentioned this before, but I'm mentioning it again. You can get extra credit if you prove that you are registered for the next semester, whether it be the summer or fall, whatever it is. Maybe like a screenshot of your MyState that shows me your schedule. What I don't need is a picture of your advising worksheet, because just because you've been advised doesn't mean that you're registered. Also, if you're registered at a different school, obviously the extra credit will not apply to you. But also, I realize some of you are graduating. So if you've applied for graduation, or you have any kind of proof that you've applied for graduation or that you're going to graduate, whatever it may be, I'll give you extra credit. So 10 points of extra credit for either one of those. And of course, if you have any more questions, let me know. Hey, good. Someone's here. I've already started, but we'll keep going. I'm now going to talk about the Module 6 lab. It was pretty straightforward. For the most part, people just watching the video. Some of you guys did the other lab where you can kind of like make your own lab. There's not much to say. I will say this. Obviously, if you do a video and you miss questions, that's kind of it, right? There's not much else you can do. You missed a question. It's not like a regular lab where you can go back and fix it. So if you didn't get full credit for the lab, but you would like to make up for lost points, go back to the lab and notice that there's other videos you can watch. So just watch extra videos and then maybe shoot me an email and say, hey, I did an extra video. Can you apply those points to my lab? So let me know if you want to do that. As always, I'll remind everybody to save it as a PDF. Not a big deal for this particular lab, but still it's a good reminder. That's the only common mistake I saw for this week's lab. As always, not always, as sort of recently, I'll remind you that you can get extra credit for turning them in early. So turn in a lab Monday or earlier, it's 10 points of extra credit. 8 for Tuesday, 6 for Wednesday, so on and so forth. So the sooner the better. I will also want to point this out too, just in case you guys know, like I'm having a lot of issues with Google Forms. So I've realized it's probably irritating for some of you, and it's definitely irritating for me. I'm working on it. It doesn't really help you guys much since there's only 2 modules left. I just want you to know as your professor that I do care and I am working on it. Another issue that I want to point out is I'll just show you. So when you turn in a form, first of all, let me remind you too, you're supposed to put in your full name and your full course number. What I do is I hit Control F and search for it. Excuse me, it looks like somebody is making, okay, interesting. Anyway, so yeah, when I've searched for somebody, you know, like I said, what I'll do is type their name up here, and then that brings it down, you know, and there it is. And I'm just using this person. This person is the one that just happened to show up. So let's say I want to grade Carly's responses. I click on this, right? Click on this. And let's see, did it work this time? Yeah, notice it didn't bring Carly's. This is not Carly. See, this is somebody with a different email address. So I now know this mistake has been happening. So before I did that, I would just look at this grade because you saw it on the video. I clicked her name and it brought this up, and I would say, oh, they got 26 out of 29. But I've now realized that there's this glitch. So now watch what happens when I hit refresh. See, and then now I'm actually looking at that person's responses. So I just wanted to let you know, doesn't matter for you much, but because you're almost done with this course. But yes, there is a glitch. I've seen it. I realize it. I'm trying to fix it. So if you guys have any suggestions on ways to help me fix the glitch, I'm all ears. And also, if you think your grade was incorrect because maybe I made a mistake like that, then please let me know and I'll fix it. Any questions about last week's lab? Let's see, we have somebody here. Yeah, hey, William. All right, I'll take that as no questions, in which case we'll move forward to talk about the discussion. This is pretty straightforward. I'll remind you again, for your replies, if you turn them in early, you'll also get extra credit, right? So assuming you get any credit for your replies, if you turn it in on a Wednesday or earlier, it's 3 points of extra credit per post, 2 points for a Thursday and 1 point for a Friday. So it's pretty straightforward. Again, the only common mistake I saw was this distinction between regulate and make illegal. Like there's a difference between regulating something and making it illegal. And a lot of people seem to not get that, or at least it appears that way based on the way they wrote their post. So for example, you know, you might think it should be completely legal to collect rainwater, but also you might think there should be regulations. And I will give you a crazy hypothetical example. Let's say some rich company, I don't know, whoever owns Dasani, I think it's Coca-Cola. Let's say they buy up a whole, I don't know, a whole town basically near some headwater of a river, right? And they put out these extremely effective and huge rain collecting devices, you know, because they have the money to do it. And they basically collect all the water and then the river grows away, right? It's crazy hypothetical. That would, you know, but picture it. And that's the idea, right? So you might say, yeah, people should be able to collect all the rainwater they want, but maybe we should have a rule against that, you know. But anyway, any questions, William, about like this difference between regulate versus make illegal?
No, I do not.
All right. As always, I keep saying this every week. People are still making this mistake. You have to use sources, and you have to, you know, for all your posts, whether it be an initial post or reply, you need to use them properly. If you don't know what I mean by properly, you can click on this because I'm going to, again, share this these notes with you. Or in every discussion prompt where it says use sources, you can click on it and it'll bring you up to this this worksheet. I don't want to waste more time talking about it, but, you know, every post needs a source. Every fact needs a source. Every source needs a working link, you know, yada, yada, yada. The same stuff. So if you need help, let me know. Anyway, other common mistakes I saw for module 6, some people listed like only the advantages or only the disadvantages, depending on, you know, what their stance was. But you need to list both. And for both of them, you need at least one environmental advantage and one environmental disadvantage. So yeah, people did lose points for that. And if you did lose points, again, as always, you can go back, even though we're past, right? We're past module 6, we can still go back and do more replies to make up for your lost points. But that being said, really quickly, I'll go back and remind you, I am still grading, so you might want to hold off until I say I'm done grading before you do that. And also, Sunday will be the last day you can make corrections or do late work or anything like that. The next word for attendance is going to be house, like a place you might live, a house.
What was the first word of attendance?
I can't give that to you. The catch is you got to be there to get it, right? So you can watch the video, that part of the video, and get the first word for attendance. Sorry. But, that's the purpose of the attendance words, is to make sure you saw the whole thing and paid attention to the whole thing. But, yeah, you can, once the video's out, you can go back and watch that. And again, I apologize. Good question, though. Any questions about the discussion? All right. Exam 3, it is past due. As always, I'm going to allow you to retake it. I still need to go in there and open it back up. But yeah, you're going to be able to retake it as usual. And as usual, the retake is not timed. It's open book. You can take it as many times as you want. But as always, nothing's automatic. Like, I don't know if you retook it. So you have to email me and say, hey, I retook it. Please adjust my grade. At which point I will go in there and I will average your first grade and your highest grade. Even if your first grade was a 0, because maybe you missed it, then you can still retake it. And again, I'll average your first grade and your highest grade. Again, I'll remind you, normally you have like 2 weeks to do that. Not this time, because this time you have until Sunday. Sunday is the cutoff for all late work and all revisions. For that, on that related note, exam 2 retake was supposed to end yesterday, but someone emailed me and said it wasn't open for them. So I'm extending it by 1 day. I haven't done it yet, but when I'm done with this meeting, I'm going to go in and change the settings. So you can still retake exam 2 up until tomorrow. And as always, I'll remind you, for any exam that's passed or quiz, I will meet you online. If you want, I will give you all the correct answers and a 5% boost to your grade. And obviously you're going to need that when the final exam comes, because the final exam is based on the first 3 exams and based on the quizzes. So, and of course, new material from modules 7 and 8. So any questions about exam 3 or exam 2? All right. I'll come back to lab 7. Let's really quickly look at discussion 7. This is really straightforward. As always, there's 2 different ways to look at it. If you like a written, a paragraph style where I describe what needs to be done, you can read it there. Or if you like a bullet point to see what you'll lose points for, you can see it there. But in general, basically, you're going to pick one energy source, whether it's renewable or not renewable, one specific, like wind power, right? As a renewable, you could write about wind power. So choose a non-renewable or renewable energy source, state which one it is, and then just give me all the textbook definitions, the textbook pros and cons, and then give me some pros and cons from another source. And that's it. Pretty straightforward. One of your classmates has already done it, and I want to show you theirs, because I don't know, you can do it the way you want, but I really like this as the person grading it. This is very straightforward, right? They said the energy source, they said that it's non-renewable. They clearly list the textbook advantages, clearly list the textbook disadvantages, and then clearly show the advantages and disadvantages from their source. Like, it's very straightforward, nice and easy to grade, and I would assume kind of nice and easy to write as well when you do it that way. So anyway, and again, sorry, as I keep saying, make sure you use sources, make sure you use them properly. Any questions about discussion 7? All right. Oh yeah, lab 7, really quickly. Let's take a look at that. Lab 7. So this one, we have 2 options. They're both, 3 options. Quickly, I just want to show you very quickly some of the common mistakes. So the first 2 options are basically looking at how energy usage has changed in the past 3 years. So right now we're looking at the renewable energy version of the lab, but the other version is the same thing I'm going to show you. So I'm not going to pull it up, and it's the non-renewable version. But let's take a look. It's pretty simple. You're going to say, overall, do you think renewable energy has increased, decreased, or stayed the same, right? And then you're going to say the same thing for each particular type of renewable energy, right? And you just go through the list and tell me what you think. There's a little bit of extra credit. looks like I need to make some changes here. But anyway, so for the extra credit, I do want to explain this really quickly. In the last year, which was used the most, renewable or non-renewable energy? So to be clear, that's not saying which increased the most or decreased the most, right? We're not talking about which increased the most. We're saying which one used the most. And that'll make sense once you look at it. For example, based on what I've seen before, solar energy is usually increasing more than the rest of them, if I remember correctly, but it's not the one that's been used the most. So I don't know if that makes any sense. If it doesn't, meet me online and I'll talk about it later. I don't want to waste William's time or anyone else for that matter. So anyway, yeah, that's that. Common mistakes I see here is you need to enter the year, right? So you're going to go to this website, you can follow this procedure, go to a website, you're going to get data from a website. I need you to put what year this information came from. Otherwise, I won't be able to grade it. Yes, you're supposed to have the most recent year and the second most recent year and the third most recent year, but some people even mess that up and they're like, they'll do it 2 years past or whatever, but you won't lose points for that. As long as I can see what year your data comes from, then we're good. Some other things to point out that are common mistakes is if something decreases, right? So sorry, back up a step. You're going to get this data from the website, right? So all that data comes from your website. Then you're going to calculate the difference, right? And obviously if it starts at a higher number and ends at a lower number, then you should have a negative number, right? So using this as an example, from 90 to 85 should be a negative number, right? So it should be a negative percentage. However, if it starts at a lower number and ends at a higher number, it should be a positive difference, right? Positive percentage. That's the most common mistake I see in this lab. And once again, I'm being honest with you, and I'm going to tell you, I'm not going to pull out a calculator and check all your math. I'm just going to use Lookology, right? So for example, again, going from 90 to 85, if you were to for some reason put 60%, that would jump out. Like I would look at that and say, well, that's way too big. Or if you put 0.6%, like even without a calculator, I can look at that and say, wow, that doesn't look right. So just use common sense, right? Just make sure your positives and negatives are correct and make sure your percentage just seems normal, right? Look at it and make sure it seems okay. Because again, I'm not going to pull out a calculator and check it. So, let me show you this. All right. So again, all this information will come from the website. This information is not given to you. So let me quickly show you how, because this is usually the #1 question I get. So I'm just going to go ahead and show you. And hopefully this would be common sense if you really thought about it. All right. So here we have the total energy, right? Total energy here. And then they list all these non-renewable sources. But here's your renewable sources, right? So here's your renewable totals right here, which is going to be, let me do it like this. Your renewable totals are going to be right here, right? So that information that you saw on the website, you're going to put right here. But if you look, it doesn't give you non-renewable totals, right? So, and again, I'm hoping if you really were to sit down and think about this, you could have figured this out yourself. But they give you the total, which is the renewable plus the non-renewable, right? This is the renewable plus the non-renewable. They give you the non-renewable totals. So obviously, if you take the total and subtract the renewable from it, then you're left with the non-renewable. I hope that makes sense. So for 2025, which would be here, that's how you would do it, right? You would take 1065.4. Excuse me, I'm sorry. Let me say that, make sure I'm saying this correctly. You would take 4,249.45 minus 1,065.4, and that would leave you with the renewable total. William, I'm glad you're on here so I can ask. Does that make sense to you? Is that logical?
Yeah, it does.
Okay, good. And because again, that's usually the biggest question I get, and also one of the biggest mistakes. So that's that. Then as usual, after you collect your data, you're going to reflect back on your hypothesis, right? So I guess here I just want to point out, make sure you're aware, these are multiple part questions. The first part is, what was your hypothesis and was it correct or incorrect? So that itself is a 2-part question, right? I thought it would increase. I was incorrect because it decreased, whatever it may be, right? So I know it's repetitive, but I've talked about this before. Yes, you have to repeat your hypothesis. And remember, this is saying correct or incorrect. So another common mistake I see is people will put yes or no. This is not a yes or no question. it's correct or incorrect. And then again, like I said, after you repeated your hypothesis and said if it was correct or incorrect, then you're going to say what happened. Did it go up? Did it go down? Did it stay the same? Pretty simple. Man, I need to fix a lot of these grammar mistakes. I apologize. Anyway, moving forward, that's all those questions. Again, you're going to reflect back on your hypotheses. Some extra credit there. A lot of extra credit opportunities for this lab. There's not much else to say. I could take a lot of time and talk about it, but I don't want to waste your time. So that's the first two versions of the lab. Again, this one is the non-renewable. The other one's the same concept, except this one is the renewable version. I'm not even going to show you the non-renewable version because it's the same concept. It's just you're looking at different energy sources. And then the other one, the third option, is just basically create your own lab. And again, I'm not going to waste your time talking about it. If you want to meet online, I can walk you through this if you want, but it's you choose what you want your lab to be. And I give you some examples. Man, look at all these typos. Anyway, I give you some examples, but you don't even need to use the examples. You could, come up with something else if you want. And I'm here to help you if you need it, which brings me back to this. For anything, whether it be a lab or discussion, I remind you, if you need help doing it, as if this was an in-person class, we can meet online and I can walk you through it and explain everything a lot slower than I am now because I'm just rushing through this. That's one option. The other option is once you've done it, before you submit it, you can meet me online so I can just quickly look it over, not like fully grade it with you sitting there waiting, but just look over the big stuff and give you the big feedback. And then, of course, the last option, as I've already mentioned today, is that you can meet me after I've graded it. So you can, I can give you detailed feedback, why this is right, why this is wrong, and you can get your 5% boost to your grade. And also sometimes, as I mentioned before, I'm human, I make mistakes. So sometimes in the process of going back and looking at your assignment again to give you feedback, sometimes I find out that I make a mistake and I'll give you a point back. Or I may have marked something wrong, but then when we actually meet in person, you can just, verbally describe what you were trying to say, and then you might get a point back for that. So that's all I have. The last word for attendance is going to be cup, C-U-P, like something you would drink out of. And that being said, like I said, I don't have anything else. William, do you have any questions?
Nope.
Okay. And for you, so since you asked about the words, I forgot to mention that too. Since you were with me, you could just email me, to remind me that you were with me, and it's up to you. I'll either give you, 8 points out of 10, 3 points instead of the 5. It's all extra credit. Or you can go back and watch the video and get the first word and get the 5 points, whatever you want. But either way, make sure you email me to remind me that you were here, and so we have a paper trail. And I will quickly, here we go, stop recording.